I am now live. What is happening, guys? It is Tuesday. Was it October 29th? Lots going on, man. Lots going on. Just wrapped up pretty good deadlift and events session. Did a run through of some conditioning work today for OSG. So did some actual deadlifts in the suit, a good conditioning medley with some air bike, hanging leg raises, sandbag who's fell, and then a sled push. So feeling pretty good. I'm feeling a little beat up though, but I feel great. Really happy with the performance today. Uh, you know, if people join, awesome, great. But I'm just going to go ahead and kind of dive right into some things that are on my mind today. And one thing I'm thinking about right now is, man, you just got to always stay on top of your habits. Like, listen, man, life gets hard. Things are really tough and challenging, but you have to be good always about even things like your meal prep, your water consumption. You should have a regular quiet meditative practice or prayer practice or some sort of regular repeated outlet to nature, some sort of stillness, right? This year I did a course with the Czech Institute on holistic life coaching. And the way that they phrase it is that the last four doctors you'll ever need are Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Happy, and Dr. Movement. So when you're kind of thinking about things that are going on in your life, everybody needs some sort of combination of quiet, solitude. You need some combination of happy. That is what makes you happy. Like what's a driver to your goal? We're going to really kind of hit on that one here pretty soon. Um, what makes you feel good inside. So that's not just like having belief and pursuit in something. That's also the activities that you do that make you feel good. So quiet, happy, diet, Dr. Diet, the foods that you're taking in, but also like any sort of input whatsoever, right? Because your diet is not just foods. It's mental stimulation. It is media. It's the sort of self-talk you give yourself. It's the type of people that you surround yourself with. It's all things that are sensory, right? That could be putting in. And one thing that's really important that I dealt with for many years is when I lived in Chicago, really things are happening around you all the time. So, you are constantly inundated by ads. You're inundated by noise. If you like live in the city, there's always cars going by, like very frequently ambulances, depending on where you live. The train, sporting games, events, depending on where you're at. So, that in some ways is, your diet, what you're consuming, the air that you breathe, the quality of foods that you eat, the quality of foods, excuse me, the water that you take in. Um, so you have all of that, and finally, Doctor Movement. So that's the last one. You have quiet, diet, happy, and movement. So it's really always all about finding the combination of those things to make you whole and healthy. These are things that you should know about, but if you don't, studies have been done on things like your attitude and belief and words, and by tuning into certain frequencies or like literally certain words, like scientists would take a word like love, they would write it on a piece of paper and put it attached to a cup of water, and then they would study what the water would look like under a microscope, and it actually forms patterns that are coherent and cohesive with certain positively charged words and also positively charged frequencies and tones. Okay. Now, the opposite actually happens if you were to do something like hate. If you have hate or anger, if you've got some sort of frequency that is incongruent, you get a lot of like disjointed patterns, right? So when you think about that, like your brain is always sending electrical signals out to the rest of your body, right? That's like how your nervous system works. It's just like an electron highway, pretty much. That's why, things like strength is not really just musculature. It is like literally about the power of you being able to fire your nervous system. So when we're talking about health and all of these things, it is important to balance all these things because you're working with electric signals that can be interfered. So when you're thinking positive thoughts, your body is 70% water. Is it coherent and congruent, or is it, scattered in all over the place? It's just like driving on a open freeway or a completely clogged highway, right? That's that. So, anyways, let's go ahead and dive into some of the topics that I have for us tonight. And if anybody's jumping in, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop in the chat, ask me some questions. Always love to have this interactive, but I am just going to spitball here as we're going. The first thing that I want to talk about is how strong do you need to be to compete at Worlds? So I have somebody who's strived for several years to compete at something like the official Strongman games, right? For me, in my opinion, that is as elite as it gets for a lightweight weight class division. They do actually own the copyright and the title for World's Strongest Man. So you get that trophy and you get that title if you end up winning. But certain things are more important for others. Like other people would rather be national champion or think something like the Pro Strongman League is more worthy, or even like the Arnold Amateur Champion. A lot of people would rather pursue that title. For me, it's always been OSG. So I took a look at some of the numbers, just thinking about what are the minimums in order to compete, right? Because a lot of people do strive to take it to that level. And I looked at an averaged for the lightweight, the middleweight, and the light heavyweights for the men and women, what these actual numbers are. So we're looking at the log event, the yoke, axle, sandbag, the throw bags, and the Atlas stones. So just thinking, about this in terms of like proportion to your body weight. Now this year, the log is a light and a heavy. It's what they call like the Trump style, right? So any attempts or any successful reps at the heavy log trumps any amount of reps at the light log. So when we're looking at this for the log press for men, the light option is 1.4 times body weight on average. And for the heavy option, 1.5 times body weight on average. So remember, these are just kind of talking about minimums. And also, strength is not always expressed to its full potential in competition, especially if you're a weight class athlete. You have a lot to deal with if you need to cut weight. If you're doing a water cut, how do you refeed successfully? Of course, everybody deals with competition jitters and performing under pressure. So just because you have the baseline strength that it takes to lift, right? Like, can you do it under pressure? Can you do it live? Can you do it with potentially strict judging? So there's always these things that we need to think about instead of just the hard numbers, because I was guilty years ago. I mean, like, it's now been 6 years or maybe even 7 years since I did this, but on paper, I used to go look at certain shows and competitions, and I would very stupidly and selfishly think like, oh, I'd do that. I would just kill everybody at that. But that's a really, really poor mindset to have, because you don't know how you're going to do. You don't know who you're competing against. So even as I look at something like the axle deadlift, like I personally expect to do very, very well, but I have no idea what other people are coming into the mix with. So all you can do is aim for these numbers, like apply yourself to the very highest degree, leave the event with as good and as close to perfect execution as possible, and, leave with regrets, and then let the chips just fall where they are. Sometimes you might even score a win or a nice, really good placing from that. But if you go in and do everything that you are capable of, you're going to be pretty happy with your performance one way or another. So moving on from the log, we're talking about the yoke. The yoke for both men and women on average ended up coming to about 4 times body weight for men and women. And now this is a car yoke, and it's going for 50 feet on that course. So it's just one straight away. Now, things to consider, right, as we're thinking about minimums versus like excellence and standards, is a lot of people are going to be finishing a 4 times body weight yoke for 50 feet in less than 10 seconds. The winning times will be that quick. So if you want to be good at this, then you have to really be able to move that well, not just move it at all, versus, going back to that log option. And even the same with the deadlift, we'll see 8, 9, 10 reps possibly on that heavy option, which, is a pretty good chunk of reps, but that's, it's just different when we're comparing timed events versus rep outs, so 50 feet will probably be done in about 10 seconds for that car yoke. That's that. But I think there's a lot of people who are just going to get stuck by that period, right? Now, on that axle, like I just said, I think the winners of this will be hitting about 10 reps or so on the heavy option. And that looks like 3.6 times body weight for the men and 3.1 times body weight for the women. But if you just want to be able to score points, period, it's pretty much right at 3 times body weight for the men and 2.5 for the women. So if you're out there and again, you're aspiring to take this up to the very highest level, these are just minimums. You have to do at least 3 times body weight on an axle in a suit for men. And then you also have to do at least 2.5 times your body weight in a suit on an axle for women. Now, sandbags, again, we're talking about timed events. You have to always consider, is this supposed to be heavy style event, or is it something that's more for speed? This is a relay, a medley, where you have a 50-foot sandbag carry, run back, pick up a Hustafel sandbag, run down 50 feet, and then you actually finish with a sled push. And I think a lot of people are going to be finishing this pretty quickly. So again, considering minimums, you have to do at least a 1.4 times body weight carry on a sandbag for men into a 1.5 times body weight carry for men on that Hustafel bag into that prowler push. But to really excel at this and do well and not just, show up and skate by, you have to be able to do that in about 30 seconds. So those are the qualifier events. We could go further into throwbacks and stones and stuff, but I actually put up a video today that's breaking this a lot more down in depth. So if you want to hear a little bit more of my thoughts on that, please check it out. It's my most recent video. I believe it's titled Strength Standards for the World's Strongest Man and Woman Competitions. So one thing that is always kind of interesting to think about is some people are really, really dire to, put in their bio or just have a notch on their tool belt to qualify for nationals or qualify for some of these competitions. And some of them don't even really give a crap about competing very well. And that's always kind of been a head scratcher to me because if you're going to go period, I think it makes sense to try and apply yourself to the very highest degree. Now, that being said, I think it's important to strive for bigger goals even when they're out of reach. So there's some things like at OSG last year for me that were pretty challenging. I did not get past the circus dumbbell last year, which is a bummer. This year I definitely would have. But because I had those higher goals, I got better at it a lot faster. And there's no chance that I'm missing 160 on a circus dumbbell this go around. Now, again, I did rather well on kind of the other events, but that's just how the chips lie. So I do think it's good to aspire to these higher level things, but kind of having an idea of the numbers that it takes to be competitive, I think is important to chase and apply yourself to. So that's a little bit on, the strength standards. How strong do you need to be to compete at Worlds? I got a question I want to shout out. I don't know if she's watching or will watch, but Savannah Shep, who just won her pro card in Strongman Corp, and I believe is going to OSG, asked me, will Strongman ever be as popular as CrossFit? Now, this actually was an interesting question because my gut response said no. However, when you look at the very, very, very highest levels, it does appear that Strongman, the world's strongest man, is more popular than the CrossFit Games. CrossFit Games has even had some primetime spots. I shouldn't say primetime, but some featured spots on ESPN on their main channel. It's been times like Sunday afternoon because that's when the games happen. But as far as viewership terms, CBS Sports currently owns the rights to the world's strongest man. Those numbers far and away dominate CrossFit. And I'm not really sure why that is. We could speculate because Strongman at the very highest level, I mean, these guys are just so larger than life that even just seeing them and looking at them is really, really, really crazy. It's also so much more real. This is something that I really like about the official strongman games is that they usually have an event or two where the like spectacle of this is very obvious. And this is something that draws me to strongman in general is like a car yoke. You know, wow, you're saying you're gonna get inside of a car and walk with it for 50 feet? That's crazy. Right? Versus, CrossFit never really has anything that's quite like that. I'm open to being proven wrong, but if somebody's just gonna like sit down on their couch and watch both of these sports, it's like so much easier to have some sort of tangible grasp on like throwing kegs versus like double unders and burpees, or pressing a huge giant dumbbell versus just like lifting a barbell. Now, that's just kind of like gen pop. As far as participation, I think the reality is CrossFit is going to draw a heck of a lot more people, maybe forever, than strongman. But I don't know. Strongman is, in my opinion, the fastest growing strength sport. Seems pretty obvious, especially here in Florida. Excuse me, I'm going to take a little sip of water here real quick before I keep going. But strongman is pretty difficult because, right, you need all sorts of different things. Like you can't have just one sandbag that 10 different people of different sizes and shapes could use, but you can have one barbell and a set of plates that 10 different people of different sizes and shapes could use. So, when we're talking about reach and access, CrossFit is always going to dominate in that end. So an interesting thing to think about, but it does, at the highest level for entertainment and spectator value, at least when it comes to TV ratings, strongman is more popular. And that's why, I think it's really cool that we're starting to get more streams and just more shows and a lot more growth out there, because there's going to be some things over the next couple of years that really stand head and shoulders above other competitions and maybe have a chance at a fighting shot at going a little bit more mainstream. That remains to be seen. I mean, I had a fire truck pull at my competition that I hosted in September, and that's, again, very visual. Everybody knows what a fire truck is, and just looking at it, you're like, oh, heck yeah, that's amazing. Cool spectacle, blah, 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 blah. So moving on. Again, if you're here watching me, would love to hear from you. If you want to drop a question or anything, got a couple people watching the live right now. But if not, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. How to save and make money for expensive competitions. And I'm also going to couple this up with the topic that I have below it of, is strongman too expensive and are promoters price gouging? So some people recently have put out things like a GoFundMe to fund expenses going into the official strongman games, or I'm sure you've seen this for other events, like, trip to go somewhere for bodybuilding, or even like youth sports, like a kid's got a chance to go, across to Europe to play in some big tournament or this or that. Like, it happens. I hate to say it, but like, not leaving the kids out of it, leave the kids out of it. If you're a grown adult and you're competing in the sport doing a GoFundMe, I think that's kind of ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. Especially when you consider, like, on that site, there are people who are raising money for like cancer and hurricane relief and things like that, just to ask and basically beg for money to like go lift rocks and lift weights is a little sad. Now, that being said, it's not that I would never support these people and I'm just being a hater. My honest take on this situation, and I would like you to reflect on this yourself as well, whatever your biggest goals and dreams are in life, is if you really care that much about it, then I think it is your responsibility to do whatever it takes to get there. Now, I guess you can make the argument like, okay, well, that means you could do a GoFundMe. Great, awesome, whatever. But I don't really believe in charity in that aspect. I think that everybody's got the potential in them to offer some sort of product or service in order to get there. Now, especially people that are going to things like OSG, like if you are that good, you have a lot of either expertise, knowledge, or something to offer to help fund you. Okay, so like last year, for example, I actually ended up making shirts. I sold about 100 t-shirts to help fund my travels to West Virginia to cover lodging and expenses. And I was very upfront from the very beginning. I said, hey, I'm making these shirts. It's Florida Strongman shirts. Like, this is helping me fund my expenses. And I think people pick up on that. And it's really cool for that. You could do training programs, you could host a seminar, you could do all of this different stuff that is using your unique talents and assets to give other people value instead of just, again, in my opinion, selfishly just asking for money with no return. Because I would love to learn from a lot of these people. I do want to support people, but I feel almost with anything that you're supposed to meet people halfway if you are doing some sort of transactional relationship. I talk about this all the time as I am a coach and a trainer. So whether I'm working with you online or in person, like I will put in all the work in the entire world if you do as well. I cannot do this by myself. If I give you the perfect program, I give you really amazing energy in session that's going to motivate you and inspire you. Like, that goes really far, and it goes 50 times further if you do all that other stuff on your own. You have to meal prep. You have to drink your water. You have to do proper recovery. You can't sit at home on your phone, like dawdling late at night and like losing out on sleep or drinking booze or doing drugs. Like, you cannot be doing that stuff. But if you are applying yourself, I will move heaven and earth to help you out. And that is like how I feel about some of these things. Like, so when we're thinking about, is strongman too expensive? Is, our promoters price gouging? Like, my honest answer in most cases is no. There are going to be instances when things are too expensive. Very interestingly, you have you actually have some people that are really charging a lot for media packages. So there's some people that are like photographers and stuff that are charging more for media packages that sometimes take weeks to deliver, that cost more than the entry registration. That's too expensive. That's putting on price gouging, but not really for promoters, because promoters for a long time, I think the standard is still about $100 for meet entry, 75 to 100. And with things getting more expensive, you have to also give some grace to the promoters and the level of the show that they're doing, because things are expensive. Let's take OSG, for example. What I think about is when I've ordered heavy equipment in the past, the freight sometimes can be almost as expensive as the equipment itself. So when we're talking about shipping a ton of heavy equipment, so like, again, just for OSG this year, there's logs, there's car yokes, there's axles, there's sandbags, Husafell sandbags, sleds, throwing bags, Atlas stones, wrecking balls. There's, all the plates, blah, 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 warm-up bars, all the stuff that goes into that. So when we're thinking about how expensive it is just to ship stuff to that location, it's already a massive expense. And then they have to rent a giant arena for several days, because they don't just have it for the days of competition. They're going to need more time several days before to load in, organize, and a day or two minimum after to load out. That is not cheap. There's lots of charges that are associated with those fees as well, like staff and electric and cleanup, that go into it. So understanding a lot of this from the promoter side, I do. I don't want to say I have sympathy, because it's not that, but I have understanding that these things are expensive. Plus, several people have told me the same thing. It's like, you're paying for an experience. So like I said earlier with OSG, like, OSG usually has a thing or two that is like such a super cool, over the top spectacle experience. Like, I'm going to get to do a car yoke. I've done that one time ever in my 17 years of lifting. Sick. And it's guaranteed to be like really well put together and crafted very, very, very intelligently so that many competitors can use it. Now, when I did this one in Tallahassee several years ago, it was well built, but like, this was, something that was put together for a local competition run by Brett Fame. It was amazing, awesome, great, 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 great time. But these things, because this is such a high level pro elite competition, they've been tested over and over and over and over again, and you're guaranteed to get a good thing. So when you're talking about having expensive fees, this is just like overpaying for Disney or a theme park, where the tickets are too expensive, The parking is too expensive. You go buy an $8 bottle of water and you don't think twice. Like, for fuck's sake, they're, you know, charging $20, $30 for a beer. And you have all these people that don't think twice. So you're paying for the experience. And let's get back to that point of, if it's really your responsibility, if it's, really, really your biggest dream and your biggest goal, then it is your responsibility to figure out whatever it takes. That could be credit cards, loans, whatever. I guess if you're so desperate to do a GoFundMe, then go for it. That's fine. But I just think if you're somebody that good, you have so much more value to offer, and there's more creative and productive, fruitful ways for everybody involved to help you out on that. So those are some of my thoughts on, is Strongman too expensive, and are promoters price gouging? That's that. And if you can't prioritize, so far out. So like this year, I knew all year long that I was going to be gunning for this competition. I knew I'd be there. I've been saving money all year so I could do this. It is just that simple. Like it's not so expensive to me that you can't figure it out. And yes, I have it slightly cheaper than a lot of people traveling internationally, but my point remains the same. You want to be there. You want to compete with the best. If you really believe that is your dream and goal, you're going to do anything it takes to be there and make it happen. So that's that. All right. So I just have one more topic that I want to dig into tonight, and I feel very important about this, and I want to try and speak about it as humbly as possible, because I am somebody that I feel like I have earned the right to be in a leadership position. I am the United States Strongman State Chair for Florida. I have run many, many shows now. I've helped at many other shows. I have judged many shows. I'm a coach. So the topic is how to be a leader in Strongman. And this is just very simple to me, but I'm seeing a lot of people that I think have potential to be much better than they are. They're just not reaching their potential. There's really a lot I could say about that, but I don't know why it's not happening. So how to be a leader. I think this starts with just showing a willingness to be in the trenches. And I see this all the time with athletes, where you have some people that are, I'll just shout this guy out, Josh Dargis, man. You have Josh Dargis, who I've seen at multiple competitions now. As soon as he is done competing, he throws off his competitor's shirt. He goes and grabs a volunteer shirt and starts helping load weights, move bags around, and volunteering like the second that he is done. It's crazy. I have such mad respect for that, And now Josh, I'm seeing, is promoting a show. I'm sorry, I wish I remembered the name of it right now, or else I would plug it. He's promoting a Strongman Corp show in New Year, New PR maybe, in North Carolina. But take a look on Iron Podium to support that guy, because he's awesome. But I would have complete faith in that guy if I was local, or if it was just reasonable to travel to that competition. Like, I'll listen to that guy. I'll come to his show. I'll do whatever it takes, man. That's volunteering immediately after competing. Now, a lot of people I've seen that have been involved for several years in the sport have not volunteered a single time, and then when they try to do something like, with sincerity or not, where they're like running a show or hosting an event or just asking you to like sign up for their coaching, buy a program, join this and that. I don't know why you would expect people to want to participate in that if you clearly have established yourself as somebody who is outside of this. What's good about Strongman is that there's such unbelievable camaraderie that's completely different from any other strength sport. Everybody cheers everybody on in Strongman. If you've ever been to a show, you know that this is how it goes. So it's not that we are intentionally like choosing and picking people as outsiders, but like you set yourself apart by your actions. If you're coming in and you've never volunteered at a show, even for 20 minutes, but you pride yourself as like, shit, dude, even a coach or like a gym owner, that really speaks a lot of volumes, in a negative way. Something like, are you really doing a lot to go out of your way to like make this, better for everybody, or just yourself? we are nothing without the community. I mean, as a leader, it's very important to like serve and serve to the highest degree. When I talk about some of these things, I'm not saying that like I am any different. I just believe that everybody else should be doing this if you give a crap. Like when I was hosting the last round of competitions, it was the USS Pro Masters Worlds and Amateur State Championships, and then also Beast of the Bay. I helped load plates, I helped judge, I helped score. I even at some point I was down on my fucking hands and knees, to wipe the floor so that it was not slick from the fire truck pull. And I am not saying any of this to be like, oh, look at me. I just like truly believe like you have to be in the trenches with people like that. It is just that simple. Like how in the freaking world could I ever expect anybody to do anything that I ever asked if I'm not showing a willingness and like actively participating in doing myself? Um, that's really all there is to it, man. I mean, like there's other levels too where like I hope that people see me out there. Like, I'm pushing myself as an athlete as hard as I possibly can. I'm supporting my clients as a coach as much as I possibly can and getting them as strong and as fit as possible for their shows. And when I am running my own shows, I do everything in my power to make sure the athletes have the best experience possible. I don't care if it freaking kills me and drains me so much that I'm exhausted for days or a week after. Like it doesn't matter because it's not about me. So just a note to anybody that's out there, you know, I don't know how much reach these things have, to be honest with you. Hopefully more someday. But if anybody's listening to this and you feel some type of way, I really invite you to look in the mirror because it's not a call out, it's a call up because anybody is welcome as long as you are like actually like on your freaking game. Dude, I want everybody involved in this sport, but only if you are here to be an active participant at every single level in every single way. This is not about anybody in particular. These are general statements. I sincerely mean that because I can think of, these are just general statements, and this not only really applies to strongman, it applies to everything. Good leaders are involved with all steps and will take on every single role and responsibility if they need to. I even got to like shout out somebody like Elon Musk, bro. That guy knows every single thing top to bottom about all of his companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company. Like that's why people listen to him and follow his lead. So to be a good leader, just get in the trenches with people, man. Just be a part of it. Like just be about that life at every level. So listen, and if you just want to be involved and participate at a lower level, that's cool too. But don't expect anybody to come around and help you out if you're not helping us and the community out. Like, don't mean that to sound selfish. It's just real because we are all in this together. There is no I in Strongman. So that being said, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you're watching live, I appreciate you so much. If you're watching on replay, you're the best. I have some pretty exciting news coming very, 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 very soon. I think this is going to be truly a truly game-changing thing for the sport of strongman. I can't wait to just roll some things out. So I really just hope for you to stay tuned. I got one comment here. We wouldn't have local comps at all if people didn't give up a day of their time for free, or it would be way more expensive. Right. Like just well said. I don't even really have a response to that. I'm just going to read that one more time. We wouldn't have local comps at all if people didn't give up a day of their time for free, or it'd be way more expensive. Well said, man. And that's why, like, listen, I love my volunteers so much. And I want to be right there with you guys when you do it. Zach Matthews was just out there all day, got himself a big, nice sunburn on Saturday, helping out just very selflessly, man, because he is the man and he gets it. And a lot of people do too. So none of this is meant to be negative because the truth is that we got a freaking ton of people who go above and beyond to help out, no questions asked. So it's really all love, all positive. But for people that want to take on more leadership roles. You should be about that life. Anyways, all right, so that's a wrap. Stay tuned next week, people. Next week, I'm announcing a really, really sick, cool project. I think you're part of it. But that's that. Stay strong. Have a championship day, people.